that. This next opportunity you have, you've seen some incredible thought leaders this morning, yes? Yes. And we're going to continue with that, but here's the interesting thing now. So these next two individuals are not necessarily keynote speakers, but they are women that are in the roles that you're aspiring to. And they have gone through the journey that you are going through to get to where you want to be. So this next part of the day is really you eavesdropping in on a conversation between two executives. And so those executives that are about to join me right now are Andrea White from Osler. She is a partner of corporate, and Kimberly Mullins, who is the Vice President of Talent, Learning, and Culture at Suncor. Please welcome them to the stage. Whoa! You have got some fans. That's amazing. How does that feel?
Fantastic.
Oh, here we go. They're on already
Feels
for you.
Fantastic.
There we go. And we're just going to check that mic one more time. Go for it.
Hello?
It feels fantastic.
And then Andrea, check yours.
Really fantastic.
Really fantastic. We can hear that, Dan. Is that working for you? He's going to give me a thumbs
And
up
you
there.
hear us in the back.
There we go.
Woo!
And give it a try again.
How about the front?
Do you have a sense you're in for a little bit of fun this afternoon? Yeah? All right. Awesome. So I'm telling you, Andrea, can you tell us a little bit about your journey? How did you get to where you are today?
So I started, I'm a lawyer, corporate partner at Osler. I started with the firm in 1998. I was the very first summer student that the Osler Calgary office hired.
Let's hear it for summer students. You too can become a lawyer.
Yes, it can happen. And I've spent the bulk of my career here in Calgary. I would say, one pivotal moment for me was when I was a third-year associate, and our managing partner for the firm had sent an email around saying there was an opportunity to apply and go to New York and work there. And so I saw the email. I thought it was very interesting, fascinating, would be a great opportunity. And I did what any leader would do and deleted it. So for me, I wasn't sure that I would actually be able to physically, that it was the right time in my life to go to New York. I had bought a house 2 months earlier. I was feeling good about where I was in the firm, in the Calgary office, and that uprooting all of that would be maybe more than I wanted to take on. I thought about it overnight, and the next day decided I would put my name in the hat. Spoiler alert, was ultimately chosen and spent 3 years down in our New York office. And it turned out to be, I think, one of the best career decisions that I've made. It was a pivotal turning point for me. At first, it developed an expertise in cross-border transactions and private M&A that I was able to bring back to the Calgary market and differentiate myself. And it also helped me broaden my contacts within the firm and develop U.S. referral client base. So it was, I never anticipated that it would be so beneficial, but I think it was a defining moment and one of the best things I've done in my career. So don't second guess yourself, go for it.
And don't delete emails.
Don't delete
Don't delete all the emails. Kimberly, what about your experience? How did you get here today?
Oh gosh, it's a long and winding road, and yet very linear. So I studied performing arts and psychology and culture when I first went to university. I grew up dancing professionally, singing, acting, and I loved the experience of community that came with that, more than the actual performances, and just the art and the creativity of that. But what I observed, because I also had this love of debate team and politics and like the working business world, was that artists could come together and create things almost seamlessly. Like you just put them in a room and they would come together and create. They could communicate with each other very effectively, sometimes dramatically, but very effectively. They could communicate what they wanted to audiences, no matter what context you put them in. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could teach leaders in other environments to do that? And so when I finished my undergraduate degree, I went in to study my PhD research, which was in leadership behavior and group dynamics, and specifically looking at how we as leaders communicate effectively through all the different ways that we have to do that, through our bodies, through our words, through the situations we put ourselves in. And that led me into the space of working in consultation around leadership behavior, team effectiveness, talent development, leadership development particularly. I started my career working with the government of Newfoundland and Labrador. Anyone who's been around a while might remember Danny Williams, worked in that space at that era, and that ultimately in turn led to a series of roles with increasing scope and complexity doing just that. How do we really do talent management well, strategically, thoughtfully? How do we develop leaders? How do we create environments and culture through our behavior and our interaction? And I've been lucky enough to have fantastic teams to work with. Some of my team are here today. And great leaders to have this giant laboratory called our work environments that I get to play in every day and do this great work.
Wow. So I'm guessing they're pretty interested on eavesdropping in on this conversation now. So Andrea, I'm going to come to you first here now. As we focus on the importance of empowering women leaders, what qualities or skills do you believe are essential for leaders to develop to thrive and lead confidently in today's world of work?
Well, I think in today's world, I would say that there's a couple of very important things. The first is adaptability. When I started practicing law, it was much different than it is today, both in terms of how it's practiced, right? We've had technological developments. AI is on the forefront. That is certainly coming, and that's going to change, I think, the way a lot of jobs are done. And in terms of the scope of the practice area itself. So the law evolves, and it's important to stay, for me, in my practice area, to see what's coming down the road and to be adaptable to that and to embrace new practice areas. And so for my career, I started out being a securities lawyer, and that's all I did for the first 3 or 4 years. And markets go up, markets go down, and when they're down, you still need something to do. So I filled that hole with mergers and acquisitions. And then, when we had a wave of insolvencies, I got busy doing corporate restructurings and assisting my insolvency partners. And of course, now we're living in a world of ESG and other developments. And so you go where your clients are going, you go where the law is going, and that means you're adapting both subject matter and the way you practice. So adaptability, I think, is key. The other piece that I think is really important is resiliency. So how you manage your home and your work-life balance, sometimes the self-doubt that can creep in when you're not 100% sure that you know how to respond to a particular situation. So resiliency, I think, is a key factor, and just knowing that you've gotten yourself here to this point today, and you've managed to survive everything that has gone before you. So the likelihood is you are going to survive whatever it is, and you're going to figure out whatever it is that's in front of you. So resiliency, I think, is very important. And then maybe just what ties into those two things a little bit is I tell myself that I've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable sometimes. So recognizing, we all get into the habit of doing things a certain way and being comfortable doing certain tasks and certain things. But in order to really grow and to really challenge yourself, you've got to get beyond those boundaries, right? And so the question is, are you operating with your limits, or are you just doing what's comfortable? And so for me, some of the hardest but greatest learning experiences have been where I've had to push myself outside of my comfort zone. And that's where I've had the biggest growth.
I think that's a fabulous call out, and one that I have said the same to myself, and when we're working with groups of new leaders, the way we challenge them is to say that growth happens in discomfort. If you find something that's really easy to do and you're like, I got this, are you actually learning something new or expanding a part of yourself and testing yourself? And that energy to be uncomfortable and to push beyond is very challenging. And we know that for all kinds of reasons, when we see who applies for jobs, for example, in the world, there's been all kinds of research done on this. Women are more likely to look at a list of requirements and say, I have to have every one of those, and I have to have demonstrated them perfectly before I will even apply. Whereas men will go, 60%, I'm good, let's go. Because their confidence that they can adapt and flex into those other things has a higher degree of comfort. So sometimes we, as women, have to be particularly willing to challenge what is comfortable to us to be able to go into the spaces where we absolutely can play. We absolutely can play there.
So, and I love this building on the conversation, because even one of the other answers, Kimberly, really leads into my next question for you. Many of our speakers shared about how resiliency and courage play a crucial role in overcoming significant challenges in leadership. What personal barriers, though, have you faced, and how did you find the courage to overcome them?
That my personal tenets, and I try and hold on to the things that are uncomfortable sometimes. Where are the spaces that I feel like you got to really push yourself? And for me, courage is one of those, because I like people. I want to be friends with everyone. I want to be able to be the person who brings people together and the helper for others to succeed. And sometimes that means that when there's a difficult conversation to be had or a line in the sand that you have to draw, you have to be courageous to do that. Sometimes it means that when that uncomfortable opportunity comes up, you just go and be courageous and do it. And to me, courage and resiliency go together. Because resiliency is not that you are unbending or you are strong and that you never fail, you never falter, you never bend. It's the opposite of that. It's the opposite. It's that you can bend and regroup. It's the rebound is resilience. And at different points in our lives and our careers, we have more things weighing us down so that the regroup, the flex back can feel a lot harder. And if you have the courage to keep flexing back even when it's hard, then you build this sense of self-efficacy, self-mastery that is even better than self-confidence. Because if I'm confident, I'm like, hey, I got this. If I have self-mastery, then I know even if I don't got this, I will figure it out. I can regroup. I can come back. I grew up in Newfoundland. Any Newfoundlanders in the house? There's always some. We're everywhere. What? And there's a tree, a certain type of tree in Newfoundland that grows it's called a tuckamore tree. Everyone can Google the tuckamore tree. They're beautiful, but they grow all weird. They can grow on the side of a rocky cliff in a hurricane and nothing can rip them out of the ground. And why is it? Because they bend with the wind. They grow the way that the wind has taken them. And as a result, they are special and beautiful and strong as anything. And I think of resilience as being a tuckamore tree. Because if you can grow with the way the wind takes you, then you can withstand anything.
Wow. And I'm sure they have very deep roots.
Very deep roots, right into the rock.
And the rock. Back to the rock again, folks. Back to the rock. Awesome. Thanks so much, Kimberly. Andrea, mentorship and sponsorship can play a significant role in overcoming adversity and fostering career growth. Could you share the role that mentors or sponsors have played in your career journey? How did you actively seek out and engage mentors and sponsors?
So that's a good question, and I think mentorship, sponsorship, and support are the three things that everyone needs in their career. Sometimes you don't know how much you're going to need it or when you're going to need it, but ultimately it's a vital and important part of, at least for me, how I was able to get to where I am. So it starts early on, I think. It starts with, your family and support from your family and, going through school and getting your first job. It supports, it's your mentors at work, the people that have helped guide you, impart knowledge on you, advise you in situations where you're not sure what to do. And then there's the people that sponsor you, the people that are out there, shouting your name from the rooftop saying, this person is amazing. Do you know them? If you don't know them, you should know them. They are the people that are nominating you for awards. They are the people that are saying, look, you need to talk to this person. You need to talk to Andrea. You need to talk to Kimberly. They've got your back and they're out there promoting you. Those people are key. You've got your colleagues in your own organization and in other organizations that are your vintage, same year of call, that you can sort of discuss. You're probably going through the same things at the same time as them, and I think it helps to have a sounding board and someone that you can talk to. And then of course there's the folks you meet in the community who and you never know where an opportunity is going to arise. And I would say that in my career I've been very surprised where opportunities come from and who you've crossed paths with for something to present itself. So you can never really know, and I think you just have to be open to that and be open to meeting new people, and building that network around you.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And so what I'm hearing from that, Andrea, as well, is that every one of you as leaders have a PIE. And jot down this acronym of what PIE actually stands for. The P in PIE is your performance. It's the results that you achieve day in and day out. And I've often challenged my own team on a monthly basis. I'll ask them one key question. What accomplishment are you most proud of? And when I first started asking that question, they had no answer for me. Think about it yourself. Take a second right now. In the last month, what accomplishment are you most proud of? And the second month I asked them the question again, and they're like, that question again? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to ask it next month. I invite you to be ready to answer that question. And they came back and they could do it. So really think about, what about your performance? And what are those accomplishments you're most proud of? That's the P, performance. I is your image, your leadership image. Raise your hand if you have a leadership image statement. One person, I can see. What about if you have life insurance? Go ahead and raise your hand if you have life insurance. Everybody, what are you more prepared to do? Die than lead. So think about your leadership image, and what would your leadership image be? What would you say? What do you want to be known for? Because people are talking about you. People are talking about you. You will leave a legacy in this role now. The question is, are they saying what you want them to say? And then E is your exposure. And those are those mentors, those are those champions, those sponsors that are out there for you. How many people are talking about you, and who are you exposed to? And then with mentorship, what I'm finding now as a 61-year-old, privileged white man, my mentors are half my age. What is this, AI that you're talking about? How do I work ChatGPT? What's that all about? Can you teach me how to forward this email on to somebody? So I need young mentors. So incredible, incredible. But with all of that as well, I think what's also important is emotional intelligence and self-awareness. So Kimberly, I come back to you here now. How do you incorporate emotional intelligence and mental wellness into your leadership style to foster a supportive and back to, again, a resilient team environment?
Yeah, it does come back to resilience and how we prepare ourselves for the work that we do. And there's a whole hour we could talk about what are the paths to build resilience and mental wellness as we go into our working world. I think that in some ways there are more challenges for us right now as we try and find balance, as we try and think about all the things that we want to do to optimize ourselves and prepare ourselves for greatness, and I should be doing this and I should be reading this, and sometimes the pressure of that can feel overwhelming. And the critical piece is to come back to what is important to you? What do you want to achieve in the world and why? Not what job, not what title. Those things can come, but what do you particularly, uniquely, want to contribute to the world that you're in? And why is that important to you? And if you are solid in that, if your goal and your values are clear to you, it becomes much easier to clear away a bunch of junk. And there's a lot of junk. There's a lot of junk inside of us. We've been told a lot of things throughout our lives that maybe don't serve us anymore. We have our own story going on all the time, and don't tell me that we do not, because we absolutely all have the story going on all the time about what we are or can't be or should have been better. And your mind is a garden. You have to keep that garden weeded, because those weeds will come in. No matter how beautiful, no matter how cultivated, no matter how sophisticated that garden is, the weeds will come. And if you leave them unattended, or worse still, think that they're flowers, then they will overtake the energy that you have for that goal and that purpose. So when we need it, when you got a garden and you're like, hey, every day I am pruning that mental garden. It's like, what is in my mind that does not serve me today? And I'm weeding that sucker out. And it might be through meditation, it might be through going for a walk, it might be chatting with a friend. My good peeps Vicky Lee here, you'll see a little later, she and I do the daily gardening, like, okay, what's the story I'm telling myself? What do I need to keep? What do I need to get rid of? And for me, recognizing that we all have our own mental health struggles throughout our lives, we all have mental health problems, life is not easy to get through, and there are things that will be bumps on the way, but when we're in a good place, that's when you really maintain, what do I want this platform that is my mind to look like, and how do I cultivate that when I have the space to do that? Because what you think, and I have seen this in my research, I have seen this in my work, I have seen this in my life, I have seen this in my brain, that everything is about the mindset you bring to it, and that your mindset and approach to how you control what you put into your thoughts, what you believe to be true, that is the biggest predictor of whether you can have the impact you want to have. But it takes so much more work than we think it does.
Wow. A lot packed in there. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's a big one. You asked a really big question.
It's a huge question, right? And so let me take you both to this then, and or actually no, Andrea, I'm going to come to you. What role has networking played in your career advancement, if you will, and how can leaders effectively build and leverage those professional networks and alliances? It took you to New York City.
Took me to New York City. Networking has been vital to my career, like absolutely vital. And like I said before, you don't know when you meet someone how much they can impact or change your trajectory of your career or move you into a different place. And when you look back, you can see the connections of how it started and where it is now. And one opportunity leads to another opportunity, which opens up another door. And so I think the broader your community, the more you will benefit from doors opening and from opportunities presenting themselves. So whether you're networking in your association, in your community, with your colleagues, at events, you need to find what works for you. Some people are great at big events. Some people need, do better in smaller groups. I actually do better in smaller groups, even though I'm sitting up here in front of
2,000 people.
2,000 people.
Dear friends.
But you need to find.
Me too, actually.
You've got to know yourself and know your strengths, and find ways to network within the things that you like to do.
I like that point too, because I know for me, when I was first starting out in my career, people would say, you got to network, and I was like kind of uncomfortable. Anybody else feel like that feels sometimes awkward or uncomfortable, because it feels like I have to schmooze, or I have to go like talk to someone for like what I can get out of them, which is not a natural place of connection for me. And the way you describe it is the way that I found my place in that conversation, which is I really just want to know good people. And meeting them and seeking them out is not just about what can I get out of this relationship from a work perspective. It's about what can I learn from this person? How can I further my objective of adding value to the world and form a community who are my people? And I've been really lucky to find some really great people who I get to spend time with and work with and connect with. I see one of them down there. Hi, Lara. Hi. Haven't seen you in so long. That you keep forever. You keep forever no matter where you go. And whether or not that leads directly to a pathway, it just leads you to think broader and to feel supported and to have those connections that make you want to step into whole new spaces.
Love it.
Agree. It should be fun.
It should be fun.
It should be fun, right?
Well, so speaking of fun then, let's bring it home in the little bit of time that we have left. Reflecting on your leadership journey, what advice would you give to women aspiring in leadership roles today? Kimberly, maybe you can start, and Andrea, bring us home.
If there was anything that I could settle on in terms of where I want the world to go and where I would want each individual person to go, is to reflect on the things you've been told and decide whether they serve you or not. We're all told that feedback is a gift, sure, but sometimes it's like a brand new Ferrari, and sometimes it's that like ugly porcelain figurine that your aunt gave you for Christmas, and you're like, what do I do with that? Like, well-intentioned, but not super practical for you, like not good for you. And I think we spend a lot of time, particularly as women, carrying around that ugly figurine and trying to find a place to display it so that we show that we received it really well. And that, in fact, could be detracting from who you are and what you uniquely have to contribute. And what makes me so excited when I see a room full of people like this is that everyone is here thinking about, like, what can I bring and how can I shine? But you can shine as you. It's a little harder, and it takes a bit of courage, and it doesn't always feel like the straightforward path. But if you're running someone else's race, you might beat them, but you'll be like, why did I get here? Why am I here? Like, run your own race. Figure out what your success is and how you can uniquely shine and bring people with you on that journey, because that is the most beautiful leadership advice that I could give to anyone. Everyone wants to work for that person. Everyone wants to follow that person. So find you and be you and use the feedback that serves that purpose, and not just what others have told you is the way to success.
I love that. Yes,
Great
recognition.
answer.
Yes. So Tara Moore has graced the stage as well. Her last name is M-O-H-R, Tara Moore. And she shared with us that feedback tells you more about the person giving it than the person receiving it.
Indeed it does. Indeed it does.
That's how they want it. That doesn't mean that's how you have to deliver it, right? You be you, you deliver you. And so long as you're in your truth, my life coaching work, it's none of my business what anyone else thinks of me, so long as I'm being authentically, genuinely me right now. If you don't like me, I'm not for everybody. I know that, I get that. Single still. If you know any great guys, send them my way. 50 plus, please. At any rate, so, Andrea, what about for yourself? What about for you? What were some of those lessons you learned, and what advice would you give young women aspiring for leadership today?
I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with the comments that Kimberly said. I mean, you've really got to find your own passion and to find your own truth. I would say that we have a tendency sometimes to overcommit to everything. So you only have so much energy in your basket. Pick the things that you want to focus on and do them well. Don't be afraid to use your voice, right? Be authentic. Don't be afraid to speak up. I remember when I was a junior, I was, nervous about doing that. And then I'd hear someone else ask my question. And then someone else would say, well, that's a great question. And I was, so don't be afraid to use your voice, to speak up, and to engage meaningfully. Don't be afraid. Jump in and figure it out. But figure out the stuff that you want to take on that's authentic to you.
Awesome. So I'm going to put you on the spot here now, and so I'll give you 2 seconds to think about it. But, as you look out at this audience of people right now, in a word, what gives you hope? Who's going to steal whose word?
Well, what gives me hope is seeing the diversity of the group before us and the
Yes.
Yeah.
Diversity.
So that gives me incredible hope, and I think tells me that we're all moving in the same direction. And when there's this many of us, I think it moves the needle so much faster. So that gives me hope.
Awesome. Kimberly.
I've been doing this work in diversity and inclusion, in organizational effectiveness for a long time. And the kind of conversations, when we feel like we haven't moved the needle, sometimes it feels like it's slower, and it is slower than we would like. But I look at this room, and there's so many of us here, men and women, so many of us here thinking intentionally about how women lead. And that would have been a very big anomaly 20 years ago. And we are having conversations about authenticity and about truth and about purpose and about values and about being who we need to be, not fitting into a mold that somebody created outside of our experience. And when I see us gathered in this way with this kind of energy and support from the corporate environment, from the business environment, from community, I see the people who are just like, they've got stuff to say, they've got their pens going. You know, that to me is incredibly hopeful, and it's just physically being here together is almost an emotional experience. I wish you could all, like, even if you just like turn around and like look out, because it's pretty amazing to see us all here together. And
the sea of hope
changes everything.
The sea of hope right off of the coast of Newfoundland.
Right.
There we go. Beautiful. Well, Kimberly and Andrea, I have a couple of questions for you. Do you feel seen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you feel heard now?
Yes,
Do you feel like you're understood now?
I hope so.
Yes.
And would you like some compensation now? Compensation, let's give it to them. Yes.
Reward.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Here we go.